I've reviewed a lot of games published by Disney Interactive, mostly Pixar games, but this game is a special game, based on Disney's most iconic character, Mickey Mouse. Back in the 2000s, they were trying to make Mickey Mouse cool again, and Disney was looking for its next big game after the success of the Kingdom Hearts games, so they decided to make an ambitious game that no one had ever thought to do, an end-of-the-world epic known simply as Epic Mickey, a third platformer that has a large fan base. But this isn't really given enough credit for being a game changer for Disney and for games in general. This game is not only great, but deserves the title of a video game masterpiece. But what makes Epic Mickey so, well, epic? Well, let's talk about why Epic Mickey is a video game masterpiece. Now, the story is very epic. The plot is similar to the Disney short, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, where Mickey steals and uses one of the wizard Yen Sid's magical objects and basically fucks everything up. Only instead of a hat with the moon and stars on it, it's now a magical paintbrush that can create anything. He ends up using said paintbrush to create an ink monster known as the Shadow Blot. He tries to undo his mistake, but accidentally spills thinner on the world that the wizard created. Afraid and ashamed by this, Mickey flees, accidentally allowing the Shadow Blot to destroy and affect the world the wizard created, turning it into a wasteland. Mickey eventually gets pulled into this world by the Shadow Blot and trapped there. By the time Mickey wakes up, he's in a laboratory in the abandoned Disney castle and is caught by the Mad Doctor, who tries to take his heart out and use it for his creations. But luckily Mickey fights back and frees himself with the help of a gremlin named Gus, defeats the Mad Doctor and his machine and flees into the mysterious wasteland. And now it's up to you to set things right, defeat the Blot and get back home. The story is honestly a perfect idea for a movie. The story is theatrical, thrilling and epic. As for the controls, this game was released exclusively on the Wii when it originally released until the rubbish game this year. So for the controls, it's gonna be the wand and nunchuck. There are times where it can be a little tricky, particularly when you have to make a jump or point at a certain thing. But for the most part, it's pretty solid. You can do a spin attack by shaking the wand, jump using the button, wand trigger for paint and nunchuck trigger for thinner. Whatever you paint gets restored to what it's supposed to be and thinner erases it. Each one also affects the characters you encounter in the wasteland. Paint makes them happy and turn good, and thinner outright kills them by melting them into a puddle of goo. The characters like Clarabelle and Gus you can't completely melt. They'll just melt up to their head and act like they're stuck in a hole and trying to get out. Enemies like the Seers, Spatters, Sweepers and other Inklings do melt completely and do so in the color of the liquid you use. The only ones that can't be affected too badly by the thinner are the Beetleorcs machines designed by the Mad Doctor. You still need thinner to defeat them, but it only does half the work. You see, the Beetleorcs machines have a painted face on them which acts as a shield to prevent you from damaging them, and they won't stop attacking you until you use thinner on their paint face, to which then you have to use your spin attack on them to destroy them. It can get a little annoying, especially when you keep dying by failing to defeat them and fall into a lake of thinner killing you instantly, but it's still manageable. You can obviously move around using the joystick on your nunchuck. I don't really have a lot to say there. These are just really solid controls, especially for a Wii-only game, and it could have been a lot harder to control. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it eventually becomes comfortable to control. As for the graphics, they were done by a studio called Junction Point, and it was once again published by Disney Interactive, and the graphics are some of the best visuals I've ever seen from a Disney game. The bleak and vibrant colors, the movement, the aesthetic, it's so good. The graphics are so cinematic, and actually feel like it's animation from a theatrical animated film. It is by far the best looking Disney game they've ever done. Now, normally I don't go into characters in video games, but the character development is one of the game's strongest aspects that I kinda have too. So Mickey as a character is cool. He has a lot of agency to set things right and get back home, and while he did make a mistake that literally destroyed the entire world, you still root for him to stop the villains and save the day. And while Mickey is in Wasteland, he finds out some really shocking secrets about his creation. You see, in the level where you first come to Main Street and are about to travel to Ostown via projection screen, he finds out that he wasn't always the mascot of Disney, and that it was originally a bunny named Oswald. In which, if you know the history of this character, you'll understand the deeper themes behind this realization. Oswald himself is the best developed character, and his backstory is so tragic and heartbreaking. We find out that before Mickey, he was the most beloved character and he had it all. But after Mickey came into the picture, all of a sudden he got shunned and overshadowed, almost like he didn't matter anymore, and he served no purpose, and that is something a lot of people can relate to. There have been plenty of times where we've hit it big and we're the talk of the town, but then somebody else comes into the scene and completely steals the spotlight from us and leaving us with nothing, and we wonder if we even have a reason to exist anymore and are we good for anything. That is an existential crisis that the majority of people go through and continue to go through to this day, and what makes his character even more sad and heartbreaking is the fact that because of Mickey's mistake, he lost the love of his life. Hortensia, and the one person that still cared about him and loved him even when he was at his lowest point, was taken from him and he had no one but a big empty heart with no life whatsoever. Oswald is honestly one of the best written and most well-developed characters in any video game, and you really feel for him and completely understand why he almost took Mickey's heart for himself, because he finally has a chance to regain all that was taken from him, his fame, his identity, his life, everything. But instead, despite everything Mickey put him through, all the misery and tragedy that he brought on him, Oswald still chooses to give Mickey back his heart and continue to live the life that Oswald so desperately wants back. He realizes that Mickey never meant to hurt him or have any of those things happen to him, and he finally learns to let go and let Mickey continue to paint the picture that Oswald started. Walt Disney of course actually started it, but you get my point. As for the other characters like Gus, Horace, Clarabelle and Pete, they don't really get a lot of screen time. They do have a bit of development as you get to meet them in Wasteland and know a bit about them, but it's nothing too deep. It's just giving you an idea of their personality and their role. Same goes for the villains of the game like the Mad Doctor, the Shadow Blot and the Blot. Yes, there's an even bigger Blot that was around before Mickey caused the Thinner disaster. They don't really go into that, but besides the point, they don't really have a lot of personality outside of them just wanting to be evil. There's a little bit with the Mad Doctor, with him having a very similar gripe with Mickey as Oswald does, but to an even greater extreme to get revenge on Mickey. Just like certain movies I've talked about recently, he's supposed to be a parallel to Oswald and show what Oswald could have become if he completely let his anger and hatred towards Mickey take over. And it's also very understandable why they did form some kind of partnership at some point, since they both have that in common. The Mad Doctor doesn't get a lot of screen time. In fact, after you defeat him in Bog Easy, it's revealed that he was an animatronic just like everyone else. Oh yeah, apparently if characters lose their heart in Wasteland they become animatronics. Again, that's something they don't really explain, but it's not important. He's just a side villain, and while his boss fight is incredibly fun, there's not really any more to him other than he's just a villain who hates Mickey and wants him to suffer. As for the Blots, I don't really understand their motivations. They're just trying to spread their darkness onto Wasteland and make it even worse than it already is. That's pretty much it. They don't really have a reason for why they're doing what they're doing. They're just mindless troublemakers. That's about it. But they are still very threatening and a force to be reckoned with and still make for great villains. There's just not a lot to them. The climax is no other way to say it. Cinematic. This is possibly the best climax Disney has ever done besides The Lion King, of course. It is thrilling, engaging, enthralling, and I know I've been saying this a lot in this review, but there's no other way to describe it. Epic. It is big, it is gripping, and it is incredibly satisfying, and brings everything to a perfect conclusion. Overall, guys, Epic Mickey is a masterpiece. It is not only a great video game, but it could also very easily be an amazing movie. Seriously, while playing this I didn't feel like I was playing a game, I felt like I was watching a movie. It has a brilliant and amazing story that delves into the history of Disney and its characters. It has unbelievably great character development, a lot of amazing emotional beats, fantastic visuals that really capture the look and feel of Disney and Mickey Mouse. I love how it delves into old Disney history and characters, and you learn stuff you didn't know before, and it is an epic scale and scope that truly make it feel cinematic and theatrical. And like I said, and it says it in the title, epic. To say I recommend this game is an understatement. This game is beyond perfect, and I cannot think of any other word to describe this game other than masterpiece, and it is my favorite game Disney ever made, and that is why Epic Mickey is a video game masterpiece. Anyways guys, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.